So my name is Pete Traynor. I'm the co-founder of a company called Us AI, and we try and put artificial intelligence to be better use than a lot of people have been using it for the last 10 years. So we're trying to apply it to a lot of kind of third sector problems and more humanitarian issues than sort of large corporate problems.
So what made you start the business? Was this sort of something in particular, a project that started it, or is it from your background?
There's a couple of reasons, really. I started working in sort of this technology digital space 20 years ago, and sort of progressed through various businesses throughout that 20 years. One thing was really niggling me for most of that 20 years as a kind of designer technologist, which was like an awful lot of companies that I was working for were doing amazing things, but they were spending huge sums of money with clients fixing kind of large corporate problems or fixing large sort of customer-facing problems. And in the back of my head, I'm constantly looking at what we're doing and going, we could use exactly the same technology and fix some genuine human problems. So it has always niggled me in the back of my head. And then about 5 years ago, kind of just hanging out with my kids, I had this sort of moment of clarity where I thought, do you know what? We can actually take an awful lot of the stuff that I've been building and an awful lot of the work that I've been doing and just do better things with it. It spurred me on to write a book, which was all about how we could apply technology in a more human-focused way, and then sort of challenge myself to start applying some of those practices in a business, and that's why we created the business.
That's really cool. Are there any sort of projects you've worked on that you've been particularly proud of?
Yeah, we've done a couple of projects in the last sort of 18 months or so. Things that I think I'm proud of the people who've collaborated and the people that I've met on these various journeys as much as the output. So one of the projects that we worked on or have been working on for about 18 months now came about. It's called Sue. It's an AI-based chat service, not really a chatbot. It's a piece of AI, happens to have a chat on the top of it, but it's a piece of analytics that helps men who are having moments of crisis talk about their problems. It's an anonymous conversational analysis service. It's really designed through collaboration with a bunch of third sector organizations that support the sort of rising issue of male suicide. We all sat down about 18 months ago at a round table called Man-Made. We looked at the problem of male suicide. Everybody was coming at it from a different perspective. We had somebody that had, survived suicide. We had two organisations that are helping vulnerable men in the Midlands, cope with real life problems, job loss, debt, drug-related problems, and then I was invited along as the technologist, as the technology guy, and between the group of us, we really sort of said, what can we all do individually and then together to try and combat this particular problem? What came out of it was this product, Sue, which is this kind of learning system, this conversational agent. It's been learning about men's problems by having conversations with them, and it's gone from being able to answer about 900 questions about life, love, and everything in between and work to about 10,000 question and answers in about 6 or 7 months since we switched it on. As a piece of technology, what's amazing is that most of it is commercially available for, call centers and various corporate, clients of ours and various other businesses. But nobody's really applied the same stack of technology to these very human problems. So that's been an amazing piece of work, and it's been very moving, humbling. Met some astonishing people. The other piece of work that I've been doing sort of over the last 6 months, we've been working with a friend of mine, James, who you also know, trying to codify some of his memories. So trying to take the knowledge that exists in this remarkable man's head out and put it into a piece of AI, a knowledge base, so that other people around the world can have conversations with James as part of his legacy, which again has been like a really humbling piece of work, because it's technology that's been commercially available. We're just using it in a slightly different way to help an individual amplify all the best parts of himself to parts of the world that perhaps wouldn't get an opportunity to meet him, which is really, really great.
It's a really beautiful project, and I think that's a really interesting thing. When I spoke to Ross from the Big Life Fix the other day, and he was saying it's so rare that as a designer you actually get to work just for one person and to create something that's so bespoke for them.
Yeah, but what I love about working with an individual on their problem and helping technology to solve that one problem is that, you know, I think as long as you approach it in a large business way for an individual, actually what you can do is take that MVP, that minimum viable product that you build with one person, and then sort of scale that up or duplicate that for many, many different people. You know, one of the problems that we had to get around or have been getting around with James is that, you know, he can't type. He has no hands, or his hands are kind of limited in their mobility. And so to get his knowledge out of his head and into a machine, we've been having to work with voice interfaces, you know, so he can talk into type, into text. Now, by doing that with him to fix that particular problem, we can actually then take that same technology back to some of our clients at some point and give the same interface to sort of non-tech savvy people in a call center or in, you know, in departments inside a business that aren't necessarily fast typers or you know, technically savvy. So I completely agree with Ross. It is a joy and a privilege to work with an individual. In the back of my head, I'm always thinking about how you can then scale that up to help as many people as possible who have similar or related problems.
He pretty much said the exact same thing. So he kind of agreed that it's almost if you tackle the smaller problems or you tackle the more individual problems, there will always be a need for them. Yeah,
and we always refer to the little big things. So we always refer to, you know, solving little problems in a really big way. And I think those little problems are personal and individual to somebody, but the big implication is what is potentially exciting. I think sort of in design, though, big companies tend to focus on fixing the big problems and then neglect those little problems that scale up into kind of bigger solutions. So it's a real joy, and I think that's one of the things that's kept me motivated to keep doing technology type work that we're doing over the last couple of years, is really the individuals that we do it with now, rather than those kind of big corporate you know, large campaigns or big technological builds for whoever it is. It's the individuals in those pieces of work, those human beings.
Do you find that, I mean, I'm assuming you do a mix of sort of big corporate work and kind of smaller, like, passion projects?
Well, again, I don't consider any of the so yes and no. They're not passion projects for me. They're kind of genuine. They're projects that are as important as the work that we do. We set the business up with a model that we kind of nickname. It's a common phrase. It's becoming a more common phrase, like conscious capitalism. And so, rather than becoming a business that's very charitable or charity focused, which is kind of exhausting because you have to, you know, raise money and then, you know, beg a little bit for cash. We do sort of as much corporate work as we need to do for good things. So if we work with a bank, we won't do, if it is a bank that we're working for, say, we won't do credit card sales. We'll do help and support. We'll do, even inside those corporate clients, we're still looking for the very human problems, not the sort of cynical sales stuff. But if we do enough corporate work that funds or helps part fund or fully fund some of the more kind of third sector or the individual projects that we want to do. I think the other thing that's really important is that those things are not considered to be sort of passion projects or you know, the side hustle. They're sort of, it's the cyclical things that are actually as important as the corporate work, and they all feed into each other.
Yeah.
So we've been doing, we have been doing a lot of work as part of the mental health stuff in like debt-related mental health. That's great because we can then reapply that knowledge back to the bank work that we're doing. Vice versa, we can, take the bank work that we've been doing and reapply the sort of debt-related services to the individuals. And so ecosystem that we create as a business and not, corporate work over there and passion projects over there. It's all part of this. It's the same thing.
That's really good because then you're learning from sort of each thing and pulling it back in. That makes you really valuable, but also you're just very kind of well-rounded humans then. You understand things from different perspectives, which is really vital, I think.
Exactly. It's exactly that. And I think, there are human beings inside businesses, there are human beings out on the street, everybody's a human at some point. Go back 10 years, some businesses were bleating on about their CSR. We have to have a corporate social responsibility, we have to do this stuff. And I think in a funny sort of way, what we're trying to do is sort of evolve and move that concept of CSR on to, it's not about a business necessarily having to just go out and do charitable work or, PR work in the community. It's about reinvesting some of the technology that they've been building with businesses like us, or reusing some of the knowledge bases that they're creating, for individuals that are more vulnerable. So it's like CSR 2 or V2 of CSR. It's an extension of a business and so on and so forth.
I've noticed a lot of the big corporates are actually doing projects that you wouldn't normally associate with them. They're kind of, their sort of tech departments or their digital departments are kind of reaching out and lending themselves to projects that have nothing related at all to what they do, but they're just kind of interested in it, and there's some link, there's some way they can apply the technology that they've created, or they can lend their developers, or that have created something that's sort of transferable. And I think that's quite interesting. There's been some real interesting projects that spring up. For example, Barclays work with Parkinson's UK. They've offered to kind of help us with some stuff, and it's like, that's not a link that you would make immediately in your head, but they have some kind of software that we can use, and it just makes sense, I think.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I think the other thing that really humbles me about the way corporates are starting to think about these things as well is they realise that it's good for their staff, especially technical people, to go apply their brains to other challenges. It gives them a break from their kind of normal day-to-day job, which then comes back in kind when they come back and do their normal jobs. But I think they also realise that, underneath a big glass roof in Canary Wharf are a group of people who care. They're there to earn wage, and that's great, but they're not robots. They do care about the issues that exist outside of those businesses, and it's great. And there's a top-down effect that is currently happening in a lot of large organisations, whereby the younger the management teams get, sort of notionally, the more that kind of goodwill starts to float down across an organisation as well. Yeah. So it's just that I think it's a sign of the time that corporates are starting to look at, and banks and insurance companies and so on and so forth, are looking at how they can help the third sector, or they can help kind of vulnerable people in different ways with different problems by giving their staff to help those issues. They're also helping their customers.
Yeah,
by doing
exactly. Those people are their customers or potential customers.
Yeah, and it's in their interest to keep those customers happy, healthy, and not just goodwill for a brand or logo, but give them a life that's more supported, and they will still continue to be a brand advocate or spend money with these businesses and so on and so forth. Yeah. It's a very forward-thinking mentality.
It's something I'm really quite impressed by and quite proud of as an industry, like how important tech has become and how kind of high up the agenda it's risen. It's kind of gone from being the sort of thing that people tinker with and that gets kind of rolled up for fun, and everyone goes to the meeting because it's a fun conversation, to actually being an important thing. Digital and tech has just really risen and sort of become important and vital things that have to be done properly and sensibly, and decisions made about them rather than just doing a chatbot because you fancy a chatbot.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think what's really lovely about the world that's been emerging over the last 10 years is, you know, I mean, since 2008, all these businesses have had to cut costs, and they've realised that technology is more than just the marketing thing, or it's more than just the kind of, oh, we must digitise our businesses. They realise that it's absolutely for efficiency reasons. It's going to bring their costs down. It's going to make sure that staff have time back to go do what they're really good at, which is kind of solving non-linear problems by having technology do the linear stuff, so having AI and so on and so forth, sort of automate some of those processes. But I also think the other thing that's happened is, you know, everybody inside and outside of corporates and charities and, you know, agencies and high street shops and so on and so forth are so immersed in technology now, and they have, you know, so much reliance on technology in a way that we did not 10 years ago, that, you know, it's second nature, and it's becoming second nature to pull out your phone when you want to solve a problem. So when somebody used to go into the boardroom and say, do you know, we want to create an app for that, or we want to create a piece of technology, data-driven technology, solve a problem, they'd go like, you're crazy. We've got a whole room of people that pick up the telephone and deal with this stuff. But now everybody's sort of immersed in the efficiency of technology, that it's not the hard to sell anymore. And then the next iteration of that is kind of, you know, smarter, more meaningful, more purposeful technology. Because I think now some of those people are starting to go, maybe we've got too much technology. Maybe there are too many lives. You know, they've gone the other way. So now we have to be more efficient. So now we have to be more considered, more purposeful of what we do. So it's a constantly evolving space. It's amazing. But you're right. It is good that we're not fighting for the boardroom to take it seriously anymore.
I think the comfort level as well I find really interesting of the general public to kind of use these things. You know, when I was at Spixie, the insurance company, I was doing some kind of market research for them around for their branding, and I spoke to a lot of people of a lot of different ages about chatbots, and actually there was no sort of one age that was comfortable with them. It was like, you know, my mum was more than happy to use a chatbot and would trust it. You know, my nan probably would, given half a chance. She's quite excited about new stuff. But there were some people of my generation and younger who were like, no, wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
I think what we started to do with the business with some of that kind of technology is go, do you know what, these are not technical problems we're trying to solve, these are psychological problems. And the starting to go, well, the tech's kind of taken care of itself because we've got to that point, which is great. But how do you make something relatable to my 4-year-old daughter, me, my 75-year-old mum? You know, conversations are very relatable if they're worded in the right way. So making sure that they're colloquial and making sure that they're, you know, on the right platform, positioned at the right time, they're not intrusive and so on and so forth. So what we have to start getting better at is making sure that these kind of like chatbots and so on and so forth, that kind of applied AI is appropriate to the audience and evolves for the audience, so that it's having a different conversation with you than it has with your mum or my mum or my grand. It's exciting as a space because you can get this technology to self-evolve now.
And the fact that it can kind of sort of learn from what your responses, if you seem like you're being quite, you know, quick when you reply, the fact that it can offer, you know, you a script that is perhaps quicker responses, so that, you know, it guesses that you're a person in a hurry. You know, it's kind of the cleverness behind it, I think, is really smart, that you can be more tailored and things like that.
That's a really lovely, sorry, just really quickly, that's a really lovely example of how we've been able to apply a kind of corporate learning to a human problem. So what you just described there, one of the things that we were doing, we were working with a bank again, with a kind of, and they call it cognitive biometrics. So looking at the way that people use an app or a service or chat or whatever for detecting fraud. And the algorithm basically uses kind of cognitive biometric cues to determine whether the person that's engaging with the service is who they say that they are. And what we were able to work out was that we could use more or less the same algorithm, tweak it slightly, and use a similar or same algorithm for, you know, people talking to our kind of mental health services to spot different types of cues. So are they in distress? And do we need to then use that cue to hand you over to the Samaritans or to a similar service. And it's tech that was developed over there for the corporate sort of fraud space, re-engineered, tweaked and reapplied over there for, a space that it was never designed for but is perfectly adequate to do, which is cracking, really, and nobody's reinventing the wheel every time.
That's really smart. So what, are you able to tell me what you're working on at the minute, or is it kind of some of the projects you've already mentioned, or?
No, there's lots of the projects we've already mentioned. We're having various conversations with sort of different charities about applied AI inside their businesses in organisations. This year is going to be a really interesting year for kind of expanding that portfolio on both sides. We're doing some work at the moment with the Financial Conduct Authority, which is really, really interesting for me. Predominantly in the kind of vulnerable customer space, but again, stuff that we learn in that space with them, we can take out and reapply to, the Money and Mental Health Institute, or, back into the Sue project when we find out that, what's keeping people awake at night in certain parts of the country is X, Y, and Z. So it's all, knowledge sharing. So that's a really exciting client, and I can see how the legs of that one will kind of spread out across different organisations, which is great. We're going to carry on working with James on his project. We're having so many conversations. It's going to be a year of huge change for technology, but also I think for businesses like ours, because we feel like we're right there at the front of quite a lot of the things that are coming along at the moment.
That's really exciting.
It's all become quite topical, hasn't it? Like everybody has rightly so, everyone has an opinion on artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, so forth, and that's good because we're all talking about it in social media and online and bubbling up as a topic that people are fascinated by. I think as long as there are companies all over the world that are directing that conversation in positive ways to problems that need to be solved, like it's only a good thing.